welcome to the Pearls Before Time knitting podcast. I'm Elise, and if you saw my last video, welcome back. Thank you for watching that one. That got a lot more views and traction than I ever expected, so thank you so much. So right on to today's topic is going to be my plans for 2024 knit-wise, what I want to make, what my goals are, and yarn I'm excited to use and all those things. So I think I'm going to just jump straight in. So every year I make myself a set of goals, and they're always in the same categories. So one thing I do, so this is my one from last year. So my categories were UFOs, finish those, things from stash, new projects, design projects, and then broader goals. So I made another one for this year, which is very similar. So it's a bit different looking, new theme, new year. So I've written down all my UFOs that I currently had at the new year. And then I have projects that I can make from stash yarn that I've actually bought the yarn to make these projects. Then I have new projects that I don't have the yarn for that I really would like to make. A lot of these are come back in from last year's one that I never got round to. And then I have a lot of design ideas this year, and I think one of my main goals for 2024 is to prioritize my designs, because it's so easy just to see a beautiful pattern that someone else has made and be like, oh, I'll make that, there are instructions, rather than actually, you know, having the motivation and discipline to not only come up with a design idea but execute it and grade it and all of that stuff, which is a bit more demanding, but it's very rewarding at the end. So I really want to get a bit more of that done. And then I have some broader goals which are more on the general side. So yeah, in my last video I actually showed all my UFOs, so I'm not going to go through those all again in detail, but I have the Pie Camisole by Creadia Studios, it's a summer top. I have the Kanya hat, which is not far from being done. I have the Flying Foxtails shawl by Stephen West. I have the Snowy Forest sweater, which I'm about halfway through the yoke, and it's the second one I'm making. I love that pattern. Then I have the Roots and Shoots sweater by Tati Litzak, and that one only has a sleeve and a half to go. So feeling like that one might be done first. And then on to things from stash. So a lot of my stash is things that I bought on offer or second hand, and I don't always have a plan when I get them, but then when I do get inspiration and I find something I want to do with them, that becomes very exciting to me. So as you can see behind me, quite alright for stash. And so the first thing in my stash that I want to make from stash is a vest, because I don't actually have any vests. I have a ton of sweaters. I don't have any vests. It's called the Monaco Vest, and it's made by, I think it's designed by Annetta Danielson, and she does a lot of designing for Isager. And every year Isager come out with collections. Well, they have been for a couple of years now, and they're always very popular. They get very good designers, and each designer gets the same mood board, and then they come up with their own design. Often it's in conjunction with a new yarn release. This year they're doing one called Isager Archives. I know that their designers are being inspired by like historic designs from when Isager started, so that's very exciting. But anyway, a couple of years ago they released a new linen yarn called Her Organic, and as part of that someone designed a vest called the Monaco Vest, and it's a beautiful cardigan vest with pockets. And so someone was selling this 6 balls of this secondhand for a very good price and quite local to me, and I do funny things sometimes, and I was into running most of last year. I want to get back into it this year, but to motivate myself to go running more, I would find places to go, and the person who had this yarn for sale lived 14 kilometers away, so I ran 14 kilometers to get this yarn, and then I got the bus home and I was very satisfied. But for the vest, this is held together with silk mohair, and I didn't want to do an exact color match because I wanted some sort of color play in it, so I actually chose this kind of olive green, which is also Isager. It's shade 68, And I've already swatched for this cardigan. It's the beautiful sort of corrugated pattern. So it looks like this. So it's kind of like an accordion rib idea. And it looks very beautiful and it drapes very nicely. So and I really like how the green and the brown look. So in this light, they look like you can see the green quite prominently, but in darker lights, the green fades. It looks more sort of brown, and then the copper really shines through. So I really enjoyed that. So I'm gonna cast that on at some point when I finished. I kind of have a rule where like I finish a UFO and then I can start a new cast on. So I don't have too many projects on the go. The next yarn from Stash that I have that I want to use, and I have a project that I want to use, is I have a load of this Alpaca 3 from Isager, which I also got on sale. They were getting rid of it at like, yeah, 50% off about. So, you know, Isager is very fancy yarn and it doesn't often come on sale. So I got a load of this, but I was never really sure what I wanted to do with it. And because it is alpaca, I do worry about the drape and the wear over time. So I thought, well, I'll go into Isager's own archives and see what patterns they have with this yarn and if I like any of them. And there were a couple that I really liked. There was a cardigan called the Helsinki cardigan, which has a really cool construction. But I didn't want a cardigan in this color. But then they also had a sweater called the Paris sweater. And that one's really fun. So I made a swatch for that one as well. And basically it's this cool motif. So it's worked, the front and the back are both worked flat, kind of like a rectangle, bottom up, and then you seam them together and then you add the sleeves, you pick up the sleeves. So it's quite a simple construction. I've never really done anything like it before, but along the middle of the front and back are 3 repeats of this sort of, I guess like branch and berry motif. I don't really know exactly what it's meant to be. Things I've learned from the swatch is like, this is quite typical. You'll see this a lot with people who, when you have to yarn over going from knit to purl and then going from purl to knit, one will always be bigger than the other. And so in some places I've overcompensated, in some places I've undercompensated. So I need to find a way to make that more even, I think. But I've done this before and I definitely remember that I managed to find a technique that worked for me. So I'm just going to do a bit of digging before I actually get started on this. So that's the next project I'm very excited about for 2024. That isn't my own design. And then I guess I've technically started this, but I'm going to count this as a swatch. And that is, I have enough in Stash with various scrap yarns and things from other projects to make a very luxurious, fluffy heirloom quilt cardigan in shades of blue and green and teal and beige and white is what I'm aiming for. So this is my first square. I really like it. I've done it in 2 strands of mohair and 1 strand of tweed, which is sport weight tweed from Isager. Sounds like I'm just a walking, talking ad for Isager. I use them a lot. They're very accessible to me and I love their colours. I think they're very beautiful colours. So those 3 are ones I've actually swatched for. And then apart from those 2, I bought a load of silk a while ago for a summer top from Featherfin Yarns, and my plan was last year actually to use it to make a top called the pause top or a poster top in Norwegian, and it's just a sort of strap summer top in rib, very simple. And the original one is just white, but I had some really beautiful, so I had a white base and then some shades of like blush pink and then a sort of darker browny pink, a nude pink, and I was going to sort of do these sort of like a chunk of white and then like 2 thin stripes of contrast color, then I think a thick bit of white. So that's something I still have on my plans. And then the last project from Stash is actually a crochet project, which is very unlike me. I have enough from Stash to do this, but I haven't decided what yarn I want to use yet. But they are the Felix mittens from the Pom Pom magazine crochet anthology, and they are so beautiful. I remember the first time I saw a picture of them, I was like, how is this made? I don't understand how this is knitted. It's like wizardry. And then realized it wasn't knitting, it was crochet. And for those of you who don't know, which is most of you, is that I actually I learned to knit when I was like 15, and then I didn't really knit very much. And then when I was at university, like aged 19, 20, I picked up crochet, and I hadn't done that before, and I really liked it, and it was accessible. And then I got really into amigurumi for a couple of years, and then I rediscovered knitting, and I think then I really got the knitting bug very hard. But so I haven't done anything crochet for quite some time, and I'm very excited to play around with these mittens. So those are those. And in terms of new projects, so every year I make myself a little mood board, and this is 2024 mood board. It's a very neutral mood board for me. Normally I'm much more colourful. Oh, there's a picture of the Felix mittens there. But yeah, I'll put links to all of these down below if I don't go over the character limit. So this is a thing I've done every year for maybe 3 years, is I take 24 pictures that inspire me most throughout the year on Instagram that I've saved, and then I have them printed at a photograph shop. And I don't know why, but there's something so nice about having, sorry, my cat is attacking my tripod. Okay, stop now. Yeah, so normally sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Thanks, little boy. But yeah, I make one every year, and it's kind of fun to go back and see the kind of mood and inspiration I had for that year. And whoa, stop it! Sorry. Oh goodness, I'm gonna have to just move my cat. I'm really sorry. So this is my naughty boy. He's just being a bit of a noodle, huh? So yeah, so every year I do these mood boards, and what I often do is I then cut them up into individual pictures and put them on a cork board or something like that. But this year I kind of really like how these all look together, and I want to kind of keep them as is. Previously, when I've done this at the photograph shop, it's an A4 piece of paper, so it was a bit of a surprise when it came and it was this small. And I think this is a very good example of shrinkflation, because it costs exactly the same as it did a year ago, but it's only about 2/3 the size. So that was a bit disappointing, but I'll survive. It's fine. Anyway, the new projects, some of them are on here. Yell cardigan. It's been on my to make list for a long time. I'm still very unsure about colour choices. It's a beautiful Farrell cardigan. I actually got the book with it in for Christmas, and I was so excited because it's been on my list, so I was going to get the book anyway, but it was just even more special that someone kind bought this for me for Christmas. So this is the owl cardigan. It's by Marie Wallin, and there's so many colors, and I've never done anything with 12 colors before, so it's going to be hard deciding on colors because I don't know exactly what I want. And I want to do it in the original yarn, which is Jameson and Smith, I think, but there is no local store that stocks it, so I'm very much like, I need to see things in person, and I would really like to go to a store that stocks it first and line up all the colours and really get settled on what colours I want. So that's why it's not been I want it to be as good as it can be, and I don't want to compromise on that. Alright, so patterns that are a bit more easy for me to get a hold of and stuff is the Haraboji cardigan, which is a beautiful sleeve-to-sleeve cardigan by Egg Knit. She is a wonderful designer. She designed it as a part of a collection for Roma, and it's made in a yarn called Fivel, and yeah, that's actually a very affordable yarn. So that's something I really like about it. It's Norwegian wool. It's not too expensive, so I'm very pleased that that's something I can make quite relatively affordably. Then I want to make a shawl called the Folke Shawl. This was on my list last year as well. I never got around to it. I've got a picture of it here. There. It was in an edition of, what's it called again? Amirisu magazine. It's a Japanese knitting magazine, and it's kind of like a triangle shawl, but it's got the split down the middle, so you end up with these like little wings, and there's a beautiful cable in the middle. It's not done on it's done on quite thick needles and with quite thick yarn, so I think it'll be quite fast. So for a shawl, for me, that's important. I often start shawls and then get bored, which is what happens. So I really love the look of this. I think it's beautiful. I'm not decided on yarn because the most accessible yarn for this would probably be some kind of blown yarn to get the right feel, to get it airy, but I don't really want to work with the blown yarn, so I'm looking at alternatives for that. Then I want to make another cat sweater. So my cat, as you saw, is quite short-haired. He can't cope with cold, and this week has been so unbelievably cold here. It's gone down to, well, it's all relative, but where we live, it hasn't been this cold in a very long time. It went to -8 this week, and it feels even colder with wind chill. So our cat is an indoor cat, and he can't go outside for very long. So when he does go outside in winter, I like putting a little sweater on him so he doesn't freeze, because he does start shivering very fast. And disclaimer, I know I've had comments before like, you shouldn't put sweaters on cats, it's cruelty. He is very okay with it. He doesn't wear them for long, like we'll go outside for maybe 15-20 minutes at most, and I think he's quite happy to have some fresh air. So in the long run, he's not gonna suffer from sweaters. But I want to make a Seeburger stencil, which is a Norwegian traditional knit, and my partner has one, a beautiful one that he's inherited that's very old, but it still looks very good. And so it's got this black and white sort of color work, and then it's got a red and green sort of ribboning edge around the neckline, so it goes around and then down. And so I kind of want to make something similar for the cat so they can match, and I think that would be very nice. And then, okay, I had socks on my list last year. I have socks on my list this year. I've not really ever made any like chunky winter, just warm socks that can act as slippers. So I want to try and get a pair of those, just so I have them just boring, very, yeah, like 2x2 rib at the cuff, and then just stocking it down very loose. Yeah, so that's those. Another, this is a very ambitious list. I don't think I'm going to get through it, half of this. And then I really liked Helga Isager designed a sort of vest top and short set as part of last year's Isager sort of collection when they released the new yarn called Trio 2. There is a picture of it here, but I think it's a bit too small. But it's, yeah, a vest top and then some shorts, and they have a little sort of rib section down the sides of both. And I went to a lecture by her this year at a knitting festival, and she had a load of samples, and she was very kind and very inspiring. She was actually wearing a sweater that's also got a photograph of it. It's called the Swell sweater, but she was wearing it in this beautiful maroon and then with dark navy stripes, and I was like, oh, that color combination, it's just like, you know, sometimes you just want to eat it. That's how I felt when I saw that. I was like, oh, that's so nice. Yeah. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention from my stash, I just skipped over it, was I want to make a pair of Aran mittens in this yarn, which is also Isager. It's Jensen yarn, and it's from the book Handcraft by Helga Isager and Helga Sorunardottir. It's a typical Icelandic surname. It's a bit tricky. But this is a really cool book. So as part of the lecture by Helga Isager, Helga Juna was also there, and they just introduced this book along with a lot of other bits and pieces from Isager. And this book is kind of more like, there's 2 base patterns, one for gloves and one for mittens, and then there's a lot of variations that you can pick and choose from. So the variation of the mittens that I want to make is, why are all the photographs in this so small? Oh well, it's this pair, so it's got like a sort of diamond cabling with some seed stitch in the middle of the gaps, and I think that's very beautiful and elegant. Oh wait, there are some bigger pictures, just not seeing them. Where can I find the big pictures for them? Yeah, that's much better. There you go, much better picture of the mittens. So that's something I also want to make. I want to make those as a gift though, not for myself. So then on to designs. As I said earlier, I want to prioritize design this year. So yeah, my broad goals include publishing 3 designs, which is a big ask. I end up just publishing accessories because there's a lot less grading and testing involved. So yeah, that's what happens when you have a full-time job, and you know, when you get home and then you're like, oh, do I really want to use my brain and work out maths for designing? And sometimes I just don't. But I do have a cardigan and a sweater on my needles with pretty clear designs in place, so I don't think it should be too hard to finish the samples and yeah, test the patterns, grade the patterns, etc. So those ones I really want to get out this year. Otherwise, I have a further 2 sweaters, and then a load of accessories that I have in mind to knit. And one of them, I had a bit of a sort of manic streak yesterday where I was like, oh, I'm just going to make it. And I couldn't be like, I'm going to just give you a preview of this because it's so cute. It's this little elephant bag in felted wool. It is so amazing. So for those of you who know what the Loewe elephant bag is, this is going to look like it. Oh, I just copied it. But I'm not a designer bag person. I would never really spend that kind of money on a bag. But I do think, like, I really admire the design sometimes. And the Loewe elephant bag is one that, like, if I ever became a millionaire, I might get one of those. Because they're just fun and playful and beautifully made, actually. The handcraft is insane. But I've looked at that design for years now, and I thought I could make that in knitting. But it would be different. It would obviously involve felting to get the structure, and, you know. So this was my first go at it. And I think I'm just going to make some I-cord that I felt and then have a little bow at the top for this one because it's quite small. I could insert a zip. I don't really want to. And I'm just so pleased with it. So what I've done is, yeah, you start top down and then you make a box pleat on either side for the legs, and then you add the head at the end, which is worked like you work it flat and then you make the trunk and the round and you can stuff it a bit. But this is a pattern that I've already drafted this version, but the felting process is a bit unpredictable, so I wasn't sure exactly how it would turn out. And yeah, I think I'm very, very happy with this. Like, for first go and kind of just guessing, I was so stoked. But there are a few things that I think I want to improve, and I'm going to redo another version in the same size, and see if that one's any better. But I do kind of want to publish both of them because this is so cute, eh? This is so sweet. Yeah, so this is one of my designs. I'm going to call it the Mammoth bag because it's like a little hairy elephant, like a mammoth, I guess. So it's going to be called the Baby Mammoth bag. If you are sort of preliminarily interested in testing, please contact me either here or on my Instagram or Ravelry. I'll reserve you on the testing list if you're interested in this. I used Raumagarn Vamps, which is, I don't know if it's bulky or Aran weight, but it's quite thick. I used 5mm needles, and like before it felted, it was at least twice as big. So this went in a 60-degree wash for like 2 hours. So I wanted to felt it as much as possible to get it really like tough. But I'm really pleased with this result. So 2024 is going to be full of elephants for me. Yeah, so in terms of my broad goals, I have, apart from 3 designs, I want to finish all my current UFOs. I kind of have that at the beginning of every year just to keep myself on track. I want to knit 3 kilos of my stash. I don't really put no buy rules on myself too much. I don't tend to impulse buy in bulk. When I go to a yarn fair, I'll get a couple of skeins sometimes. But as someone who designs, I think having a wide variety of yarns is very important for me to feel inspired. And if I feel inspired and I want to just make a swatch, I have it there. And then obviously if I want to develop that into a pattern, I'll buy the full quantity I need. So I do have quite a lot of like 1 skeins or 1 ball of several different yarn types on hand most of the time. Yeah, other things is there's techniques I want to improve. I want to improve my 2x2 rib. That sounds really bizarre, but it's actually a really tricky technique, and I'm an English knitter, not a Norwegian style knitter, so I always struggle having one very loose column of knit stitches. So I'll have like a nice neat knit and a loose knit and then purl purl, and there'll be like tight knit, loose knit, purl purl. And I have watched like Nimble Needles videos and all sorts of technique videos, and it's still like, it's improved, but I want it to be perfect. So that's something I want to do. And the other thing is I've never steeked a pattern, so if I do get onto the Yale cardigan this year, which I really hope, that will be my first steeked pattern. And I really want to, execute that. And I have a little extra section that I added on. And this is for everyone, I think, when they knit. And for me in particular, one of them is drink more while knitting, which I don't know if anyone else has this. Probably you do. I sit down to knit and then suddenly time goes so fast, and it'll be like 5 hours later and I won't have had a break, and then I'm like, I'm so dehydrated, I haven't stood up, I've just been knitting. So I'm going to try and be more disciplined and have more breaks, have a drink. See, I've had a coffee in front of me, it's cold now because I've just been talking. And then I also want to be better at documenting things. I'm podcasting now and I do take photos for Instagram, but on the whole, I'm not good at documenting processes. I'm very much like, oh, I finished this, here's a picture of it. Whereas I think it is a bit more important to remember, what a project looks like at the beginning and throughout, and not just for content creation, but also just for myself. So those are my goals for 2024. And what are your goals for 2024? Please share them. Do you have the same kind of goal category system as me? Are you a sort of stash busting kind of goals person, or are you on a no buy this year? Let me know what patterns you want to make, what designers inspire you. So I'd love to hear from you. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.